The ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was called the U's Resolve, and it carried the hopes of an entire planet. Inside, Captain Park Do-hyun stood at the main window and watched the stars pass by. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. Today was the most important day in human history. "We are approaching the station, Captain," said Lieutenant Kim Yuna from her seat. She was young but very skilled. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panels. Do-hyun nodded. "Tell the crew to prepare. We meet the Galactic Assembly in 1 hour." For 200 years, humans had dreamed of reaching the stars. They had built rockets, then faster ships, then ships that could bend space itself. And now, finally, they had received an invitation. The Galactic Assembly wanted to meet the newcomers from the small blue planet called Earth. Dr. Lee Tae-ho walked onto the bridge. He was the ship's language expert. He had spent 20 years studying the few alien signals humanity had captured. Now he would finally speak to the beings who sent them. "Are you nervous?" Do-hyun asked him. Tae-ho smiled weakly. "I have been waiting for this moment my whole life." Nervous does not begin to describe it. The station grew larger in the window. It was enormous, bigger than any city on Earth. Lights covered its surface like glowing wounds in the darkness. Ships of strange shapes moved around it, coming and going like insects around a hive. The Resolve docked at a small port on the station's edge. The human delegation gathered at the airlock. There were 12 of them in total. Scientists, diplomats, soldiers. The best humanity had to offer. "Remember," Do-hyun said to his people, "we represent everyone on Earth. Every person who ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if we were alone. Today, we show the galaxy who we are." The airlock opened. The smell hit them first. It was strange, not bad, but different from anything they had known. The air was thicker here, warmer. Lights of many colors lined the hallway ahead. A creature waited for them. It was tall, almost 3 meters, and its body seemed to be made of living crystal. Light moved inside it like blood in veins. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "Welcome, representatives of Earth. I am Krextal, speaker for the Velfari people. The assembly awaits you." They followed the crystal being through long corridors. Other aliens passed them, and each one was more strange than the last. Some had too many legs. Some had no legs at all. Some floated. Some crawled. The humans tried not to stare, but it was hard. Finally, they reached the assembly chamber. The room was vast. Hundreds of seats rose in circles around the central platform. Each section held a different species. The humans counted 12 in total, though some were hard to see clearly. On the platform stood a single podium, and above it floated a glowing symbol that Tae-ho recognized as the mark of the Galactic Assembly. Krixtal led them to a small area at the very edge of the chamber. The seats were uncomfortable, clearly not designed for human bodies. But they sat anyway and waited. "Representatives of Earth," Krixtal announced, its voice filling the chamber. "You may now introduce your species to the assembly." Do-hyun stood. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to walk to the podium. Every eye in the room, and many things that were not eyes, turned to look at him. "Thank you," he said. His voice was small in the huge space, but the translation systems carried it to every ear. "My name is Park Do-hyun. I speak for the people of Earth. We call ourselves humans." He paused, expecting some reaction. What he got was not what he expected. Laughter. It started in one section, where a large insect-like creature sat. Their mandibles clicked together in what was clearly amusement. Then it spread. A species of floating gas clouds pulsed with colors that Tae-ho's research said meant mockery. Even Krixtal's crystal body flickered with something like humor. Do-hyun did not understand. He looked back at Tae-ho, who was rapidly checking his translation devices. "Is there a problem?" Do-hyun asked, Crystal stepped forward. Forgive us, Representative. But did you say your species name is human? From the root word humus, meaning soil? Dirt? Yes, Do-hyun said slowly. It refers to our connection to the earth. The ground. Our home. More laughter. The insect creatures, the drawn, seemed especially amused. One of them spoke, its voice harsh and clicking. You name yourselves after dirt? After the mud beneath our feet? We have walked among the stars for 10,000 years, another drawn added. We name ourselves after the void, after power, after conquest. And you are dirt walkers, ground crawlers. Yuna's hands became fists at her sides. Taiho put a hand on her arm to calm her. Do-hyun kept his face still. Our name reflects our origins. We do not see this as shameful. Of course you do not, Crystal said, and there was pity in its voice now. You are young. You do not know better. The crystal being turned to address the full assembly. Honored representatives, the species known as humans has achieved basic interstellar travel. Their technology is primitive but functional. Their lifespan is short, approximately 80 of their years. Their bodies are soft and easily damaged. How do they even survive? Someone asked from the upper rows. They reproduce quickly, Crystal answered. Like many short-lived species. Do-hyun felt his face grow hot. He was being described like an animal. Like something to be studied and dismissed. The Valkyrie propose, Crystal continued, that humans be granted provisional observer status. They may watch assembly proceedings, but may not vote or speak unless invited. This status will be reviewed in 100 standard cycles. 100 cycles. Taiho did the math quickly. That was almost 200 Earth years. None of them would live to see it. The vote was quick. Every species agreed. The humans were too young, too weak, too primitive. Let them watch and learn. Maybe their grandchildren's grandchildren would be worthy of respect. As the human delegation was led out of the chamber. Crystal approached Do-hyun one last time. Do not feel bad, Dirt Walker, the crystal being said. Every species begins somewhere. Return when you have proven you are more than the mud you crawled from. Perhaps in a few thousand years, we will speak again. Do-hyun said nothing. He simply nodded and walked away. On the ship, no one spoke for a long time. They had come with such hope, such excitement. They had dreamed of being welcomed into a family of stars. Instead, they had been laughed at, mocked, dismissed. Yuna finally broke the silence. They have no idea who they are dealing with. No, Do-hyun agreed quietly. He looked out the window at the station growing smaller behind them. They do not. Taiho was recording everything in his personal log. The laughter, the mockery, the word Dirt Walker. He would make sure humanity never forgot this day. They think we are weak, Taiho said. They think because we are soft, because we die easily, because we are young. They think this makes us lesser. They are wrong, Yuna said. Yes, Do-hyun agreed. He turned away from the window. His eyes were hard now, the shock replaced by something colder. Something patient. They are very wrong. And one day, they will understand just how wrong they were. The resolve turned toward home. Behind them, the Galactic Assembly continued its ancient routines, already forgetting the small delegation of dirt walkers who had come and gone. They would not forget for long. 6 months passed on Earth. The story of the assembly spread quickly. People were angry. They had sent their best, and their best had been laughed at. Called dirt walkers. Treated like children. But humans did what humans always do. They worked harder. Factories built new ships. Scientists studied the alien technology they had glimpsed. Soldiers trained for wars they hoped would never come. And in quiet rooms, generals made plans for every possibility. Captain Park Do-hyun was promoted to admiral. He spent his days studying reports from the small observation post humanity was allowed to keep near assembly space. He read everything, learned everything, and waited. The waiting ended on a cold morning in December. "Admiral," his assistant said, rushing into his office. "Something is happening. The assembly has called an emergency session." Dawn stood quickly. "Show me." The screens filled with chaos. Assembly ships were burning. Planets were falling. A new enemy had appeared from beyond the edge of known space. They called themselves the Vorak Dominion. The Vorak were hunters. They had spent 10,000 years conquering everything they touched. When they found the Galactic Assembly, they saw only prey. Within 3 weeks, 3 member species of the Assembly had fallen. Their worlds were burned. Their people were scattered or dead. The mighty Dron, who had laughed loudest at the humans, had lost half their fleet in a single battle. Do-hyun watched it all. He felt no joy at the suffering of those who had mocked him. He only felt cold certainty. The galaxy was at war, and soon that war would reach Earth. The human government made a decision. They would not wait. They would not hide. They would go to the assembly and offer help. Ambassador Choi Yoonji was chosen to lead this mission. She was 60 years old, a former general who had fought in 3 wars on Earth before becoming a diplomat. Her hair was gray, her back was straight, and her eyes missed nothing. "They will refuse us," her advisors warned. "They think we are weak. They will not accept our help." "Then we will make them accept," Yoonji replied. The human delegation returned to the assembly station. This time, the mood was different. The corridors that had been full of busy aliens were now empty. Many species had fled. Those who remained walked quickly, looking over their shoulders. The assembly chamber was half empty when Yoonji entered. Many seats held only holograms of leaders who were too scared to come in person. The Valkyrie still presided, but even Crystal seemed dimmer now. Its crystal body had cracks that had not been there before. "The human delegation requests permission to speak," Yoonji announced. Crystal turned slowly. "This is an emergency session. We do not have time for observers." "I am not here to observe," Yoonji said. Her voice was calm, but carried across the chamber. "I am here to offer the help of the Terran Republic." Silence. Then, slowly bitter laughter from the Dron section. But it was weak this time, tired. "Help?" One of the Dron leaders said. "What help can Dirtwalkers provide? We have lost fleets that numbered in the thousands. How many ships do you have? 100? 200? 42 combat-ready vessels," Yoonji said. "And 50,000 soldiers prepared to deploy." More laughter, but it died quickly. The Dron leader shook its head. 42 ships against the Vorak? They will destroy you in hours." "Perhaps," Yoonji said. "But those hours might save lives. Those hours might give your people time to run or fight or find another way. We are offering those hours freely." Quickstyle moved closer to the human. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle. "You would sacrifice your soldiers for species who mocked you, who called you Dirtwalkers and laughed at your name." Yoonji met the crystal being's gaze without flinching. "We would sacrifice our soldiers because it is the right thing to do. Because we do not abandon others to darkness, even if they have been unkind to us. That is not who we are." The chamber was silent. Even the holograms seemed to lean forward. "The Vorak believe strength is everything," Yoonji continued. "They see your fear, and it makes them hungry. They have never encountered a species that refuses to accept defeat. They have never met humans. And what makes humans different?" Crystal asked. Yoonji smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We have spent our entire history fighting each other. We have developed war into an art form. Every generation, we find new ways to destroy. And yet, we survive. We always survive. The Varak think they understand predators. They are wrong. They have never hunted something that bites back harder. A murmur ran through the chamber. Species that had dismissed the humans were now looking at them differently. We request permission to deploy the 7th Terran Expeditionary Force to the Karath system, Unji said. Our scouts report the Varak Armada is heading there. We will hold the line. The Karath system is lost, a Dran admiral said. We have already written it off. 300 Varak ships are approaching. You cannot hold against that with 42 vessels. We can try, Yunji said simply. Crystal considered for a long moment. Then it turned to the assembly. A vote. Shall we allow the humans to deploy their forces to Karath? The vote was quick. Most species voted yes, but not out of hope. They voted yes because they expected the humans to die. Better the dirt walkers than their own people. Let the fools sacrifice themselves, if they wished. Unji saw the calculation in their eyes. She did not care. Thank you for your permission, she said. We will depart immediately. As she left the chamber, Crystal called after her. Ambassador, why do you do this? Truly. Yunji stopped but did not turn around. Because 6 months ago, you laughed at our name. You called us soft, fragile, short-lived, and maybe you were right. Maybe we are all of those things. But you forgot something important. What? Now Yunji turned. Her eyes were bright with something fierce. Soft things learn to be hard. Fragile things learn to be careful. And short-lived things, we learn to make every moment count. You have had 10,000 years to prepare for an enemy like the Varak. You failed. We have had 6 months. Let us show you what we learned. She walked away without waiting for a response. 3 days later, the 7th Terran Expeditionary Force arrived at the Karath system. Admiral Park Do-hyun commanded from the bridge of the UES Resolve, now repaired and upgraded. Around him, 41 other ships took their positions. Ahead of them, 300 Varak vessels moved like a dark cloud across the stars. Admiral, Lieutenant Kim Yuna reported, the Varak are scanning us. They probably think we are a joke. Do-hyun watched the enemy fleet approach. Good, he said. Let them think that. Let them laugh. They will stop laughing soon enough. He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Admiral Park. In a few hours, we will face an enemy that has never known defeat. They believe they are hunters and we are prey. They are wrong. Today, we teach them what it means to face humanity. Today, we show the galaxy that the dirt walkers have claws. He paused, then spoke the words that would become legend. No retreat. No surrender. Hold the line. Across 42 ships, 50,000 humans prepared for battle. None of them expected to survive. All of them were ready to fight anyway. That was the human way. The Karath system was dying. Broken ships from the drawn fleet drifted through the darkness like dead leaves on still water. Fires burned in the wreckage, fed by leaking oxygen until there was nothing left to burn. On the planet below, 3 billion souls waited for the end. They had seen their protectors fall. They knew what came next. The Varak Armada moved forward without pause. 300 warships, each one a mountain of black metal covered in weapons. At their center flew the flagship of Supreme Commander Golrath. He stood on his bridge and watched the last drawn vessels try to run. His mandibles clicked with pleasure. Pathetic, he said. The assembly species are as weak as we expected. This galaxy will fall within a year. His sensor officer made a sound of confusion. Commander, we are detecting new vessels entering the system. More runners? Golrath asked. No, Commander. They are coming toward us. Golrath turned to look at the display. 42 small ships had appeared from hyperspace. They were holding formation, making no attempt to flee. Their design was unfamiliar. "Identify them," Golrath ordered. "Unknown species, Commander. We have no records of these vessels." Golrath studied the newcomers. They were small, barely worth noticing compared to his fleet. He had destroyed larger forces before breakfast. "Ignore them," he said. "They will die with the rest." But the small ships did not wait to die. They attacked. Admiral Park Do-hyun gave the order from the bridge of the Resolve. "All vessels, execute pattern Delta. Target their formation edges. Make them chase us." The human fleet scattered like startled birds, then came together again in a new shape. Missiles launched in waves, not at the Varak center, but at the flanks. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. The Varak responded with overwhelming force. Beams of burning light swept across space. 2 human ships vanished in the first volley. Then 3 more. But the humans did not stop. They did not slow down. They flew directly into the fire. Lieutenant Kim Yuna worked her controls with desperate focus. "Admiral, the enemy is trying to surround us." "Standard hunting tactics." "I know," Do-hyun said. "Let them think it is working." "All ships, prepare for close engagement." The Varak fleet moved to encircle the small human force. They expected their prey to panic, to run, to beg. Every other species had done so. Instead, the humans flew straight into the closing trap. "They are insane," Golrath said, watching from his flagship. "What are they doing?" He found out seconds later. The human ships reached knife-fighting distance and stopped retreating. They turned and attacked with everything they had. Missiles, railguns, energy weapons. But more than that, they deployed something the Varak had never seen. Boarding teams. Sergeant Beat Ji-won led the first wave onto a Varak carrier. Her shuttle punched through the enemy hull like a needle through skin. Before the metal stopped screaming, she was already moving. "Go, go, go!" she shouted. Her team of 20 Marines followed her into the alien ship. The corridors were dark and smelled of blood. The Varak crew was huge, each one twice the size of a human. They had claws that could cut through armor. They had teeth that could crush bone. Ji-won shot the first one she saw before it could react. Then the second. Then the third. Her team moved like ghosts, room by room, corridor by corridor. They did not fight fair. They set traps. They collapsed ceilings. They poisoned the air systems with chemicals that burned Varak lungs. 15 minutes after boarding, Ji-won reached the reactor room. Her team had lost 6 members. Her arm was bleeding. She did not stop. "Set the charges," she ordered. "We have 3 minutes to reach the next target." The carrier exploded as Ji-won's team departed. They were already firing their shuttle toward the next Varak vessel. Across the battle, similar scenes played out. Human boarding teams struck again and again. They were not trying to capture ships. They were trying to destroy them from inside. The Varak could not understand it. Their enemies were dying by the hundreds, but they kept coming. Kept fighting. Kept killing. Pilot Han Soo-jin flew her interceptor through a storm of enemy fire. Her wingman was gone. Her weapons were almost empty. Her ship was damaged so badly that warning lights covered every display. "Resolve, this is Soo-jin," she reported. "I'm out of missiles. 2 guns still working. Orders?" Admiral Do-hyun's voice came back immediately. "Return to the ship for resupply." Soo-jin looked at the Varak command vessel ahead of her. Its bridge was exposed, a large bubble of transparent material. One good hit would kill everyone inside. "Negative, Admiral," she said. "I see an opportunity. Tell my family I love them." She cut the communication and pushed her throttle to maximum. Her interceptor crossed the distance in seconds. Varak gunners tried to track her, but she was too fast, too small. She twisted through their fire like water through rocks. At the last moment, Sujin aimed for the bridge. The explosion was beautiful. The entire command vessel shuddered as its leadership died in fire and broken glass. Sujin was gone before anyone could react. The battle raged for 11 hours. Admiral Doan never left his bridge. He gave orders until his voice went hoarse, then kept giving them in whispers. Around him, his crew fell one by one to wounds and exhaustion. He remained standing. The Resolve was hit 17 times. 3 decks were open to space. The engines were failing. But Doyun kept fighting. When his weapons finally gave out, he made a decision. All hands, abandon ship, he ordered. Head for the planet's surface. Continue the fight from there. What about you, Admiral? Yuna asked. She was bleeding from a cut on her head, but she refused to leave her post. I am staying, Dohyun said. There is one more thing I can do. He aimed the dying Resolve directly at the Varek flagship. At Golrath himself, Yuna understood. She did not argue. It has been an honor, Admiral. The honor was mine, Lieutenant. Now go, that is an order. She went. Dohyun stayed. The Resolve struck the Varek flagship at full speed. Both ships died in an explosion that lit up the system. Golrath survived, barely, but his vessel was crippled. His fleet was in chaos. And then, silence. When the fire faded and the debris settled, something impossible had happened. The Varek Armada was destroyed. All 300 ships were gone, either dead or fleeing into hyperspace. The human fleet had done what every other species said could not be done. 29 human ships were lost. 31,000 soldiers dead. But the line held. On the planet below, 3 billion Dron looked up at the sky and saw no more death falling. They did not understand what had happened. They only knew that the Dirt Walkers, the soft creatures everyone had laughed at, had saved them all. In the wreckage of the battlefield, escape pods drifted. Human survivors waited for rescue. Many were wounded. Many more were dying. But they had one. Sergeant Big G1 floated in her damaged shuttle, watching the stars. She had lost her entire team. Her own wounds were serious. But she was smiling. We did it, she whispered to no one. We actually did it. Far away, the Galactic Assembly received the first reports from Korath. They read the numbers 3 times. Certain there was an error. There was no error. The Dirt Walkers had done the impossible, and the galaxy would never see them the same way again. The assembly chamber was silent. Every seat was filled, not with holograms this time, but with real bodies. Species that had not left their homeworlds in centuries had traveled here. They needed to see this with their own eyes. On the central display, the Battle of Korath played again. It had been shown 7 times already. Each time, the delegates watched in growing disbelief. They saw human ships charging into certain death. They saw soldiers boarding enemy vessels and fighting with hands and teeth when their weapons ran dry. They saw a pilot fly her burning craft into an enemy bridge. They saw an admiral sacrifice his ship to cripple the Varek command. Krikstal stood at the podium, its crystal body flickering with emotions it could not name. When the recording ended, the Volturi turned to face the chamber. What you have witnessed is not edited, Krikstal said. Our analysts have verified every moment. The human force of 42 vessels destroyed 300 Varek warships. They suffered 90% casualties. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. A drawn admiral rose from his seat. His exoskeleton was cracked, wounds from his own failed battle against the Varek. This is impossible, he said. No species fights like this. No species accepts such losses and continues to attack. There must be some trick. Some technology we are not seeing. There is no trick, a new voice said. Dr. Lee Taiho walked into the chamber. He was older now than when he had first come here 6 months ago. Older and harder. Behind him came Ambassador Choi Yoonji and the survivors of the 7th Expeditionary Force. There were not many of them. A few hundred, where once there had been thousands. Taeho approached the podium. Crystal stepped aside without being asked. "You want to know how we won?" Taeho said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. "You want to know what secret weapon we used? What special technology allowed soft, short-lived dirtwalkers to defeat an enemy that destroyed your mighty fleets?" He paused and looked around the chamber. Many species could not meet his gaze. "The answer is simple," he continued. "We have no secret weapon. We have no special technology. What we have is something you forgot long ago, if you ever knew it at all." "And what is that?" Crystal asked. "Experience with death." The chamber stirred uneasily. Taeho continued. "You laughed at our name. Human. From humus. Dirt. You thought it meant we were lowly. Beneath you. You were wrong. We named ourselves after the earth because we understand what we are. We are not crystals that live forever. We are not exoskeletons that last for centuries. We are flesh, bone, blood. We break. We bleed. We die." His voice grew stronger. "And because we die so easily, we have learned to fight harder than any species you have ever known. We have been killing each other since before we could write. We have faced extinction 12 times, plagues, famines, wars so terrible they burned entire continents. Each time we survived. Each time we came back stronger." The drawn admiral who had spoken earlier made a dismissive gesture. "All species have wars. All species have conflicts. Not like ours," Taeho said. "Your wars are fought with rules, with limits. When one side is clearly losing, they surrender. They accept defeat. They live to fight another day." He shook his head. "We are not like that. When humans are pushed to the edge, when we face true extinction, we do not surrender. We become something else. Something terrible." He gestured to the survivors behind him. Men and women with bandages and scars. Missing limbs, burns, eyes that had seen too much death. "Look at them," Taeho said. "Look at what they endured. Any sane species would have run, would have saved themselves. But they did not. Because humans do not accept defeat. Not truly. Not ever. We may lose battles. We may lose wars. But we never stop fighting. Even when it is hopeless. Even when every logical choice says to give up. We keep going. Why?" Crystal asked. There was no mockery in its voice now. Only genuine confusion. Why would any species choose such suffering? Taeho was silent for a moment. Then he spoke softly. "Because we know we will die anyway. Our lives are short. Our bodies are fragile. We watch our loved ones grow old and fade. We bury our parents, our friends, our children. Death walks beside us from the moment we are born." He looked directly at Crystal. "You live for 10,000 years. You have time. You can afford to lose, to retreat, to try again later. We cannot. Every day is precious to us. Every moment matters. When something threatens what we love, we do not calculate the odds. We do not consider our chances of survival. We simply fight with everything we have, for as long as we can, until there is nothing left to give." The chamber was completely silent. "The Virak thought they understood predators," Taeho said. "They were wrong. They had hunted species that valued their own lives above all else. Species that would run when threatened, surrender when defeated, accept the end when it came. They had never met humans." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We domesticated wolves. We hunted creatures 10 times our size. We climbed mountains that should have killed us, crossed oceans that should have drowned us, walked into storms that should have broken us. And when we finally reached the stars, we brought all of that with us. Every lesson, every scar, every memory of ancestors who refused to die. Ambassador Choi Yoonji stepped forward. The Varak Dominion is wounded, but not destroyed. They will come again. When they do, we will fight them. Alone if we must. But we would prefer to fight beside you. Why? The drawn admiral asked. We mocked you. We laughed at you. We called you dirt walkers and treated you like animals. Why would you help us? Yoonji looked at him for a long moment. Because grudges are a luxury we cannot afford. Because the Varak will not stop with you, and we would rather face them with allies than alone. And because, she paused, because that is who we are. We do not abandon those in need, even those who have hurt us, even those who do not deserve our help. We are soft, yes. We are fragile. We are short-lived. But we are also stubborn and kind and impossibly, irrationally hopeful. We believe things can get better. We believe people can change. We believe that even in the darkest moment, there is always something worth fighting for. Crystal stepped forward. Its crystal body was glowing now, brighter than before. The Valkyrie owe humanity a debt that cannot be repaid. We underestimated you. We dismissed you. We were fools, the ancient being turned to the assembly. I propose a new vote. Full membership for the Terran Republic. Voting rights. A seat on the Security Council. And a formal alliance against the Varak Dominion, with human commanders leading our combined military efforts. The vote was unanimous. When it was done, Taiho walked back to his people. Sergeant Big Jiwon was there, her arm still in a sling. Lieutenant Kim Yuna stood beside her, one of the few survivors of the resolve. They are looking at us differently now, Jiwon said quietly. Yes, Taiho agreed. Is that what we wanted? Taiho thought about Admiral Park Do-yoon, who had died ramming his ship into the enemy. About Han Soo-jin, who had flown into that bridge without hesitation. About the 31,000 soldiers who had given everything. No, he said. What we wanted was to go home and be left in peace. But that was never possible, was it? The galaxy does not leave anyone in peace. The only choice is whether to fight or to kneel. He looked at the assembly delegates, who were now surrounding the human survivors with respect and something close to fear. We chose to fight. And now we will keep fighting until the Varak are gone and our people are safe. That is the only way this ends. Yuna nodded. For the Admiral. For all of them, Jiwon agreed. The war was not over. It had barely begun. But something had changed. The galaxy no longer saw humans as dirt-walkers. They saw them as something far more dangerous. They saw them as survivors. The war lasted 3 more years. It was not easy. The Varak Dominion had ruled beyond the galactic rim for 10,000 years. They had conquered 100 species. They did not know how to lose. But they learned. Commander Omaire became the face of the war. She was small, even by human standards, with a quiet voice and gentle eyes. None of that mattered when she gave orders. Her soldiers would have followed her into a black hole. At the Battle of Sethrak Prime, a Varak energy blade took her left arm. The medics wanted to send her home. She refused. Build me a new one, she said from her hospital bed. They did. She helped design it herself, lying awake through the nights, sketching improvements between surgeries. 6 weeks later, she was back in command. Her new arm was stronger than the old one. Her soldiers said it was the only part of her that could match her will. A journalist asked her why she did not take a medical discharge. She seemed confused by the question. The war is not over, she said. as if that explained everything. For humans, it did. The assembly species fought alongside humanity now. The Drawn, who had laughed loudest at the Dirtwalkers, became their closest allies. They learned human tactics, human ruthlessness, human refusal to accept defeat. Some of them even learned to smile. Crixto, the Velthari ambassador, traveled with the human fleet for a full year. The ancient crystal being wanted to understand these strange, short-lived creatures who had saved the galaxy. "You know you will not live to see your great-grandchildren," Crixto said to Myray once, during a quiet moment between battles. "No," Myray agreed. "My life is a single breath compared to yours. One small moment in an endless story. Does that not frighten you?" Myray thought about it. "Sometimes. But mostly, it makes me grateful. Every sunrise matters to me. Every friendship. Every victory. I do not have time to waste, so I make sure nothing is wasted." Crixdale was silent for a long moment. "We have lived for millions of years," it said finally. "And in all that time, we have never learned what you just taught me. We assumed our long lives made us wise. But wisdom is not measured in years. It is measured in how fully each moment is lived." The war ground on, planet by planet, system by system. The Varak retreated, regrouped, attacked again. Each time, the combined fleet pushed them back. Dr. Lee Taiho, now Admiral Taiho, commanded the intelligence division. He studied the Varik, learned their culture, their weaknesses, their fears. He discovered something interesting. The Varak had a word for species that refused to die. They called them Ghostwalkers. Enemies who should be dead, but kept appearing, kept fighting, kept killing. It was the closest thing to a nightmare their culture had. Humans became the Ghostwalkers. Varak soldiers started seeing humans in shadows that held no enemies. They heard human footsteps in empty corridors. Some of them broke without ever facing a real battle. The terror was enough. Supreme Commander Golrath, who had survived the Battle of Karath, watched his empire crumble. He had dedicated his life to conquest. He had believed strength was the only truth. Now he faced an enemy that treated death like an inconvenience. How do you fight something that does not care if it dies? He asked his advisors. None of them had an answer. The final battle took place above the Varak homeworld. Their last fleet, everything they had left, stood between the Allied forces and total defeat. 2,000 ships against 1,500. The numbers favored the Varak. The numbers meant nothing. Admiral Shin Junho commanded the Allied fleet. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been young when the humans first went to the assembly. He had watched the laughter, felt the shame. He had promised himself that one day, things would be different. That day had come. "All vessels," he broadcast. "The enemy believes this is their final stand. They are wrong. This is ours. For every human who died at Karath. For every species the Varak enslaved. For everyone who was ever told they were too weak to matter. Today, we proved them wrong. Today, we finished this." The battle lasted 16 hours. When it ended, the Varak fleet was gone. Their homeworld hung in space, undefended. Their people watched the Allied ships approach and waited for the destruction. They knew they deserved. It did not come. Admiral Junho broadcast to the planet below. "People of the Varak Dominion, your fleet is destroyed. Your commanders have surrendered. The war is over." He paused, then continued. "We could destroy you. No one would blame us. After everything you have done, extinction might seem like justice. But that is not who we are. We are humans. We fight when we must. We show mercy when we can. This war ends not with your annihilation, but with the choice to be better. We hope you take it. Golrath was brought before Junho 3 days later. The Varak Supreme Commander was wounded, defeated, but still proud. I want to understand, Golrath said. How does a species so weak produce warriors so terrible? How do creatures who die so easily fight so hard? Junho considered the question for a long time. We are not weak, he said finally. We are aware. Every human soldier knows they can die. They know their lives are short, their bodies fragile, their time limited. They fight anyway. That is not weakness. That is something you never learn to understand. What is it? Courage, Junho said. True courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear. We are terrified, Golrath. We have always been terrified. Of death, of pain, of loss. We face that fear every single day of our short lives. And every single day, we choose to keep going, to keep living, to keep loving, to keep fighting. He leaned closer to the defeated commander. That is what you never understood about us. You thought our short lives were a weakness, but they are our greatest strength. They teach us what truly matters. They force us to be brave. Golrath had no response. 1 year later, the Galactic Assembly held a ceremony. Humanity was formally elevated to full membership, the fastest ascension in Assembly history. But that was not the main event. Crystal rose to speak. The crystal being had changed since the war began. It was brighter now, its light steadier. It had learned things that thousands of years had never taught it. We called you dirt walkers, Crystal said. We were fools. You are not defined by your origins. You are defined by what you become when everything seems lost. The Valthyri's voice filled the chamber. The Varak called you soft. The Assembly called you primitive. The galaxy called you insignificant. And when the darkness came, you stood in its path and refused to move. Crystal turned to face the human delegation. Ambassador Choi Yunji, Admiral Taiho, Commander Myray with her metal arm. The veterans. The survivors. The ones who had lost everything and fought anyway. We laughed at the name human. We will never laugh again. The chamber rose. Every species. Every delegate. A standing ovation that lasted 7 minutes. Admiral Shin Junho stood among his people. Beside him, a holographic memorial displayed the names of every human who died in the war. 32,417 names. He had memorized them all. He read them silently, one by one. Each name was a person. Each person was a universe. Each universe was now gone. This was what it meant to be human. To be fragile. To be mortal. To be afraid and to fight anyway. Later that night, Junho stood alone on an observation deck, looking at the stars. Crystal found him there. What are you thinking? The Valthyri asked. I am thinking about the next generation, Junho said. The children who will grow up in a galaxy at peace. They will never know what it cost. They will never understand the sacrifices that bought their freedom. Is that not the point? Crystal asked. To give them a better world than the one we inherited? Junho smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. Yes, he said. That is exactly the point. That is what we fought for. Not glory, not revenge. Just the hope that our children would have it easier than we did. He looked at the stars one last time. They looked at the darkness and saw emptiness. He said quietly, we looked at the darkness and saw a challenge. That is who we are. That is who we will always be. Crystal stood beside him in silence. Two species, ancient and young, looking at the same sky. The war was over. The story was just beginning.